everybody, welcome back to episode 85 on this Tuesday evening.
It's Tuesday.
I don't know why, I'm thinking about Thursday because our anniversary is on Thursday. But today's Tuesday.
Did you get me a present?
I got you a big present. In fact, I was thinking about our wedding a lot today because on my walk outside today it was 70 degrees in Chicago, which was amazing. And miraculously, the year that we got married, which was 1995, it was also in the 70s. So very unusual, but amazing that we didn't have to have like 20-degree weather and tons of snow on the ground.
But I think by our actual anniversary, it's supposed to be raining.
Yeah.
So there's that.
And we had talked about the last time we went out to dinner was on our anniversary last year.
A year ago.
We could order out from there if you wanted to on Thursday, if you wanted to.
I don't think we should discuss our plans. What do you want? What do you want for a present?
Well,
put you on the spot.
Yeah, we actually talked about getting bikes.
That was our plan last year.
It was our plan last year, but then obviously since everything that happened and on lockdown and everything, we put that on hold. So that we're putting that back on the table. Because we have not had... Well, David had a really nice bike that got stolen from our garage, which was horrible.
A bike that I did a number of triathlons with.
Yeah, so that stunk. And then, we just have not had a bike. Actual bicycles we can walk for a very long time. And
my old bike got damaged, and that one was nice too. I had that one for many years. But we were driving up to the Wisconsin Dells with the kids years ago. And we got a new bike rack for our car, but it was the kind where you take the front tire off and you attach the fork to part of the bike rack. It locks in place. The back tire is strapped in and the fork is locked in the front, which is great until you're on a bridge going over the Wisconsin River and the wind kicks up.
Yeah.
And the bike, it just bent the fork. Yeah. Entirely.
And we didn't realize it until...
we realized it immediately because it was hanging down the driver's side of the car. I was never able to get it fixed.
Yeah, and our plan was we brought those and we had two, our two oldest were, Claire wasn't born yet, so we just had the two little ones and they were very little. And like 1 and 3 or something like that. And we had gotten... the bike seats, so they could bike, and we were going to do like trails and stuff when we got there, and that didn't happen. Excuse me.
I can tell you exactly when it was, because it was in, this is not right. It was the day, we drove up there the day of the Concorde plane crash.
Oh, that's right.
And they ended up grounding the Concorde after that because when we got to, I thought it was the very last flight. They ended up grounding that jet, but it wasn't apparently the very last flight. They flew it that was in 2000. Wow. Air France Flight 4590. It crashed, and we happened to we were just arriving at the resort in Wisconsin at the Dells, and that was on the TV.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. You just mentioned that.
Yep. So that was bad. And they did not ground it that day, but that was apparently the last major flight. Anyway. Never mind. And
if you are not familiar with the Wisconsin Dells, it is like a water park. They've got...
well, it's more than a water park. It's a
whole thing. Area. But the one thing is our takeaway from that trip, which we had a tradition for many years, was we ended up going to a restaurant there called Mr. Pancake.
That's right.
I think it's still there. I'm not sure.
I'm
we'll
sure
have to look it up.
I'm sure.
There's 2 memories I have of that trip, which was amazing. So we went to Mr. Pancake, and then we were looking at the menu and everything. I was eyeing the waffles because I was like, the waffles looked amazing. David ordered chocolate chip pancakes, and then I was just like, wait a second. I'm like, if I see your pancakes look so deluxe and I'm like super jealous of it. I'm like, I'll take chocolate chip pancakes too. And when they came, they were literally like the size of a plate. I mean, they're just like stacked. But then they also had chocolate chips on top and whipped cream.
And chocolate chips.
Chips.
In the bag.
Yeah, they were amazing.
And then we started making them all the time
Yeah.
because the kids were little and we would make them. Only we would add, and that was my idea. We
Yes.
added banana to it. So you'd smash up banana and have chocolate chips.
And we did that on the weekend for many years when the kids were small. It was like a big treat to have that. My other favorite place that we went there was Paul Bunyan. And it was kind of like the tables.
Also for breakfast, I think.
Also for breakfast, because they had the round donuts that were like cinnamon and sugar that they just put out on the table.
On the table. That's right.
And the seating was like picnic tables, so you kind of like
sort of family
did that, and it was just like it was a fun time.
And they had, I don't know if it's still the case, there were all these like supper clubs up there.
Yes.
Which is kind of a Wisconsin. I mean, it's not just a Wisconsin thing, but in those days it was popular in Wisconsin.
Yeah, not just Sheboygan. Because I like to say Sheboygan.
Yeah. No, Sheboygan is more due north of here. It's the Dells are north and west, not far from Madison, the state capital.
Yeah, it's not far.
But in any event, So I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but that's how my bike died. My original
yeah, we talked
bike.
about the bikes, which talked about
and then I
bikes.
bought the nice truck that I did the triathlons with, and then that died.
Yeah. So in fact, when I think there was like a rash of robberies, like garage, in our neighborhood when that was done, but it was just kind of like,
I think so. It probably shouldn't have been in the garage, but there's a story behind that, but I don't want to blame anyone. No one at this table is to blame.
So anyway, so we're
no
going to be
house
looking at bikes.
blame.
Our nephew works at a bike shop in Chicago, so we will probably be visiting that relatively soon and see what our options are. So look out, trails.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem though, is that there are trails around here, but they're really crowded in the summer, and I'm still a little unsure.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But then I was thinking we have the bike rack that we had gotten for the back of it, so we do have a bike rack on there, so we could travel with them.
And it can hold a couple of. I think it can only hold two, but it can definitely hold two.
Yeah.
That was actually a pretty good buy. We got the kind that latches onto the back of the car, but we had to transport our daughter's bike back from college, and it was really secure.
Yeah.
And easy to put on the car and take off of the car and all that.
And the nice thing about that too is when we bought it from a local bike shop in our town, the guy took it out of the package and put it on the car for us.
Right.
So it was just kind of like, all right, thanks.
Right, and it's probably good that he did, because it's not overly complicated, but it's easier to watch someone else do it.
Definitely.
Than it is to try to do it yourself the first time. But we put it on since then.
We have.
And it's not that complicated. So, yeah. What we ought to do is take the bikes and go someplace well away from here.
Yes.
Since that's an option. But
we should do it.
Yeah, we'll see.
And I think I still have a bike helmet somewhere.
But one thing, we're not getting new tattoos for our anniversary.
No.
That was fun.
And we're not going to get a tandem bike.
No. If we do, you're going to have to do all the work.
Yeah, I'll be in the front, you be back. Or who has to do the most pedaling in a tandem bike? Is it the front person or the back person?
I don't know. That's a good question.
But
it wouldn't really fit on the bike rack anyway.
It would not.
So
it'd be too long.
It's not an option. Maybe we can connect them. Get two bikes and connect them. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good times.
Sure. It's Tuesday, and as we like to say, Tuesday has no feel.
Tuesday has no feel.
But things are always a little off on a Tuesday.
It is, and it's just like super. We've both been busy at work, and then David has a volunteer thing this weekend that he's doing, so it's just a
supposedly
busy week. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is great, but it is a little involved. So that's what happens. No good deed goes unpunished,
exactly,
as they say. No, I'm kidding. It'll be great, But it'll be one of these things where I have to be up early all weekend. So it's not going to be our usual weekend schedule,
Yes.
which I think we should keep to ourselves, but you like to share with people. We sleep late. So yeah, that'll be a little strange. I have Friday off, except I don't really, because I have to be, it's a high school mock trial competition that I'm helping out with. So I have to be on the computer at 8:30 in the morning, I think is when I have to log on. And this will be interesting too, because, normally when they do these mock trial competitions, they do it like it's a real trial. You're in a courtroom, and the high school kids who are competing, it's a more realistic experience this year because, well, I guess this is a realistic experience, but
Right.
so we're doing it everything is remote, like the way courts are actually handling things these days.
I guess that's right.
And so it'll be interesting to see how it all comes off. Everyone will be on Zoom but that's the way things are handled these days for the most part. So in and of itself, that's going to be a fascinating.
I kind of think for me, if it was something that was minor that I had to go to court for, I would much rather do it on Zoom than actually going into a courtroom, because it just scares me so much to be in a courtroom for some reason. I don't know why. I got a parking ticket one time, and the guy...
It wasn't a parking ticket, was it? Was it
Oh, I think I didn't have my license plate sticker or something like that. And so
But you got pulled over.
I got pulled over.
Yeah.
And then the guy said, follow me to the police station. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what did I do? And it turns out he didn't have his book to write a ticket. And so he ended up, I had to go follow him to the station so he could actually write me a ticket. I came home crying. And then David came to court as my counsel, which is another benefit, because if you have counsel, mostly you get to go first, because you're probably paying by the hour, and you're not going to just sit there for hours waiting for it. But nothing happened, and it was like totally fine, but I was just like happy to have you in my court, going to court.
And I didn't charge you. So
that was pro bono.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see
much.
Nowadays just about everything is done remotely, and it creates problems. There's a video that's going around. Some guy some lawyer was appearing at some kind of a hearing, but his kid had been using his computer for online classes or something like that. And then, in any event, when he first logged on, there was an image of a cat, and he was fumbling trying to get that off the screen so he could
so it's like a meme of him, but it was like a...
So he was saying he says, I'm not a cat, I'm a lawyer, and then somehow he got it. So that's become a whole thing. I'm not a cat, which is funny too, because I'm hoping that our actual cats won't make an appearance.
Yes.
We're not during this competition. It depends on what role you fill. If you're the actual judge, then you have to be on camera the whole time. They have some people, and we don't know who's going to be assigned what at this point. Some people are just evaluating, functioning as jurors, but really just evaluating the kids and kind of scoring them. And so, though, if you're an evaluator, you don't have to be on camera the whole time. You're just supposed to be on at the beginning, and then after it's over, you comment a little bit about how the kids did, and so you come back. So I'm hoping that, we don't have a cat jumping up on. I'm not sure whether I'm going to you do it at a desk or do it right here or whatever.
Right.
But I don't want
Which they like to do.
Yeah, last week, twice during meetings, the same cat jumped up on my desk, and so I had to show her off. But that's not entirely, we're supposed to pretend like this is a real courtroom experience, so that wouldn't be an entirely appropriate thing to do.
And one cat, when I was away, was obviously on my computer, and I had on my Outlook open, and there was like a meeting, and it was like all different letters in there, and I was just like, are you scheduling meetings for me now? I have a quick question about this mock trial thing. Yeah. So are students there, they want to be lawyers, or they just, it's like something fun for them to do?
They're high school students, so it's a little premature. Mm-hmm. I don't know that they know what they're going to do with the rest of their lives, but I imagine some of them will. And, it's an actual, this is a statewide competition, but there's actually a national competition that comes later, and so they qualify. I don't know exactly how it works. They qualify to the team that wins this competition potentially could represent the state of Illinois.
It would be so much more fun though if it was in person.
Right. Well, and it normally takes place at the law school down in Champaign, where I went to school. There's an actual, in the law school building, there's an actual courtroom. And they actually do, from time to time, have real court hearings in that room. Like the Illinois Appellate Court, sometimes that branch of the Illinois Appellate Court will sometimes hear cases there. I think they've heard federal cases in that courtroom and things like that. So it's used partly as a classroom, but it's an actual courtroom. And so it's set up like a courtroom.
Right, so it's not just like pretend.
Yeah, so it's kind of a neat thing. Now, I don't think, I'm not exactly sure because there's multiple groups. So they have, the normal process would be on a Saturday, they would have the initial trials. And then there's a group of teams that advance to the next round, which takes place on Sunday, and then one of those teams wins. But because it's remote and it's more complicated and more time consuming to do things remotely, this year the initial rounds will be Friday and Saturday with the final on Sunday. So I have to now I'm not participating in every single one of them, but I have a couple on Friday, a couple on Saturday, and one on Sunday. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. That's a lot of technology to get in place so it doesn't, get all messed up.
Right, and even people who do it all the time, have issues. I had a seminar or webinar, whatever you want to call it today, with a Cook County judge talking about exactly that. For the most part, by now, everybody knows what, lawyers and judges know what they're doing. But it was a learning process, and,
Mm-hmm.
And then the question still remains whether or not once the pandemic is over, will they continue to do this in real life, in real courtrooms? Because there's there's definitely some efficiencies once everybody gets used to the technology and knows what they're doing. There's a lot of times when you go to court and not a lot is going on. You're just kind of reporting on the status of a case. It's not like you really need to go downtown to the courthouse.
If you're saying a sentence, then it's just why spend all that time doing that?
And there's a lot of really routine or non uncontested things that happen in the life of a lawsuit. And so there's an awful lot of things that could be handled remotely so that you're not billing clients for as much time, because you're not, even if you're downtown, you still have to physically leave your office, go to the courthouse, you got to get through security, there's time involved. All of that costs the client money. If you can sit at your desk and handle a hearing in 5 minutes that would otherwise take, a half hour or an hour,
right. That's
obviously it's a huge savings for everybody. It's better for the lawyers, even though you're charging less for that specific thing. You can get a lot more done in the course of a day.
Definitely.
And there are other things too, like in emergency situations. It might be better to handle things remotely, because you can get everybody on a Zoom call quickly in the case of an emergency. There's a lot of mediation and things that go on where it's an informal process. You're trying to resolve a case. There's all kinds of ways in which this technology would really make the profession a lot more efficient and cost clients a lot less money.
I kind of think it will be a version of online versus
Well, it's interesting too, because in one division of the circuit court in Cook County, back in 2019, they actually had a little pilot program where they were experimenting with conducting hearings remotely. For one thing, certain kinds of remote hearings have taken place for a long time, because, for example, in federal court or in federal bankruptcy court, you will often have parties all over the country, lawyers all over the country. And so for a long time, they've held hearings over the telephone. You might be, you'd be sitting in the courtroom and the judge will pull the phone up and set it on the desk, and there'll be a lawyer from New York appearing at a hearing in Chicago or in Rockford,
I guess that's right.
Illinois,
You don't
or whatever.
necessarily have to have a lawyer that lives in your state.
Yeah, and I mean the federal courts, because of that, have had to do that sort of thing for ages. Now, it usually is much more low tech. It's usually somebody phoning in, and even then, there are some questions, and there's a big difference between a lawyer just appearing and explaining the status of a case versus having to have a witness testify, having them sworn in. They're not supposed to be, while they're testifying, in communication with anybody else. So there's a lot of things that you need to control that are a little more complicated when you're doing it remotely. But if you can and do it in a fair way, it's just that the amount of time savings and just the efficiency of it would be fantastic. So it really will be interesting to see how this works out. Now, of course, we've got lawyers acting as judges and, as I said, evaluators, which is probably what I'll end up doing since this is the first time I'm participating in this. But the kids, there's high school kids who are acting as the lawyers and the witnesses and things like that. They're, of course, more technologically savvy than the rest of us. So they may be, much better than the typical lawyer in all this. So that'll be an interesting thing in and of itself.
I was actually just thinking, what another bad time for students graduating with their law degree for this time. Trying to start a profession when it's all wonky.
Well, and that's an interesting thing too. For one thing, it was very controversial last summer, and then typically the bar exam is held twice a year, once in July and once in, I think, February. And most people take it in July because you graduate in, say, May or June, and so that's when you're starting your career. A lot of states, maybe most states, conducted the bar exam remotely, which is that's a whole, there's all kinds of security concerns. Parts of the bar exam are national. There's a multiple choice part that's typically the same all over the country, and then there's an essay part that's typically more specific to your state. Some states have 3 parts. They have a part that focuses just on local court procedures, and then more substantive law, and then this national multiple choice thing that you do. So there's a lot of security that goes into it, because you not only have kids taking the exam all over the state, there's multiple different locations within any given state, but you also have people all over the country, and a portion of the exam is the same. And it typically occurs at exactly the same time in all 50 states.
So somebody doesn't take it and then tell their friend
somebody, when we took it, you could not leave the room once it began, once a particular session began. You couldn't leave the room until it was over, because they didn't want you, in the old days, going and getting on a payphone and calling somebody or whatever. So there's all these security type concerns, but most states conducted it remotely last year in the summer, and they're still planning to do that again this coming year. Illinois is going to do it remotely again. So, but the other interesting thing is, a lot of law firms are hiring. So kids are getting jobs. It's not that they don't have jobs, but they're not, the big part of it is all that early professional development that goes on when you're new to the profession, you've never really gone to court before, or negotiated a real deal with another lawyer on the other side or whatever. And there's so much sort of mentoring that goes on, and training and professional development, that's the hard part, I think, in this environment, is not being physically present in an office where there's so much,
definitely,
sitting around talking about things and how you do things, and
just learning how to be in an office, kind of thing is a big thing. I know the answer to this at one point, but I forgot. Did you find out right away if you passed, or did you have to wait?
No, you take it at the end of July. Typically take it at the end of July, and you find out in like September.
Oh gosh, that's a long time.
So yeah, I remember. So it used to always be on a Friday. You'd find out on a Friday. You get, the results came by mail, and so the firm I was working at a big firm in the city, and I lived in the suburbs, and it was a commute to go home. So, but there were other people who lived fairly close to the office, and they would go home at lunch
to see if
they got their results. So this firm, we would have the Jenner and Block, which we talked about the other day. They would have a cocktail hour every Friday at 5:30 in the one of the big conference rooms in the office. And I remember that Friday, a lot of people knew already, and everyone in my group passed, but a lot of people already knew. They'd already gone home and gotten that envelope out of the mail, and I still had to jump on the L and go home. Yeah, but I still had a cocktail.
There you go.
And then you're typically sworn in right around the beginning of November.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
So then, let's just say for a worst case scenario, so you take it July, you find out in September you didn't do it, then you would probably take it that February and try again.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the requirements are, but yeah, typically. And there's more to it than passing the bar. There's a separate ethics exam that you take, and you typically take that while you're still in law school, like in the middle of your third year.
Don't take bribes.
No, it's a little more complicated than that. But yeah, there's an ethics exam called the Multi-State Professional Responsibility Exam, and that's part of it. There's the full-blown bar exam, and then typically there's this sort of character and fitness review. So even though you pass the bar exam, in theory you could still be denied admission to the bar if you have, you can't, and then that process, you get denied if you lie about anything. Like if you tell the truth, you were convicted of a crime or something like that. If you tell the truth, you're probably going to pass. I mean, depending on the crime.
Yeah.
Right. But if you lie, you get on.
Yeah, that's no good.
But yeah, it's so it'll be interesting. So I don't know. We don't want to discourage these kids from going to law school. So hopefully they'll enjoy the experience of doing this mock trial thing.
Definitely. And it's just like one of those things you just have to like roll with the punches of doing everything remote until people can get back together. So
yeah.
Kudos for you for volunteering.
Oh yeah.
So we ended up talking for almost a half hour. So this is I hope you enjoyed this episode tonight. We weren't sure what we were going to talk about, but we filled you with all sorts of knowledge and stuff.
So if it'll be interesting to see if anybody knows, like with our job, they're talking about maybe, I mean, I work remotely anyway, but people may be coming back in the summertime to the offices around the country where people actually go to the office.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting thing, is like what other employers are thinking of in terms of when people would get back to the physical office.
I know for my firm that I work with, it's a large, 300 plus people all on one floor, that whenever it does come back, it'll start like 25% capacity for a little bit, then 50%, but I believe they said they'll never go back 100% until whenever, but I'm sure there'll be a hybrid of going in, or they said if you don't want to come back in, you don't have to.
Yeah, same.
So that's kind of nice too, not to have the pressure until you know for sure that this is all over. You don't have to do that. So we'll see. We've had millions of Teams meetings and Zoom meetings in the last year.
Some with cats, some without.
Some with cats, some without. Some with fun backgrounds. I've actually just started doing that with Teams and having like the beach behind me or something like that, just to mix it up. I'm on vacation somewhere. So anyway, we'll be back on Thursday. We're going to be celebrating our anniversary, tell stories, show pictures from our wedding, and hope to see you then. So have a good rest of the night, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.